Hopefully everybody is connected and can hear me okay. My name is Mihal. I'll be moderating the webinar today and looking after everybody. Joining me on the call is Scott Footlick, who's our Vice President of Customer Success here at BrightWork. Can you hear me okay, Scott?
I sure can, Mihal.
Excellent, and I can hear you perfect. So we've passed the first test, which is great. So Scott has been working closely with our customers for a number of years. He's very familiar with the common challenges and pitfalls of implementing project management within organizations. So he's best placed to talk about what we're going to talk about today. So we are looking at the best practices of deploying a project management tool. And I guess the key thing, and Scott's going to talk to it after a while, the key thing we're looking for here is standardization. You know, without standardizing project management, you're going to end up with a bunch of project management styles and approaches. And with the best will in the world, it's pretty much impossible to get universal buy-in from everyone if you don't have a single tool that everyone can work from. You're going to end up with a bunch of silos as well in your organization. So what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at the overview of BrightWork 365, which is our product. It works on Microsoft 365. Scott's going to give a taste of how BrightWork 365 works. And then he's going to talk to us about the best practices for implementing a tool, which, you know, these are things that have worked out well when we work with our customers, but they're pretty universal. So we have loads to get through today. Just before we dive in, I just have a couple of housekeeping items. We are assuming and we are hoping that you have lots of questions. If you do have questions throughout the demonstration, please do add it to the questions panel in GoToWebinar. So that's on the right-hand side for me. You may need to expand out the questions panel. Feel free to try it out and say hello, by the way. We will get to as many questions as come in just after Scott's presentation, if that's okay. So I'll be on hand to moderate that at the end. A couple of people using it there already. You're very welcome, folks. Secondly, this webinar is being recorded, so don't worry too much about taking any notes. You will receive an email tomorrow from my colleague Adam with a link to the recording and any slides as well that we use today. So don't worry about taking any notes or any of that kind of stuff. We'll send you out anything we use today, and feel free to share it with any of your colleagues in your organization. So just before I hand over to Scott for our presentation, let's just run a very, very quick poll. I just want to know, are you guys looking to deploy a project management solution? Let's get a sense of why you're here today. And a couple of people, most people are voting yes, which is great. I'm just going to let that run for a couple of minutes more. Well, a couple of seconds. Let's not. Most people are voting yes, and it's not an immediate priority. So it's a good audience, Scott.
Yeah.
Let's just let that run for another second. So I've got 70% people said yes. It's changed all the time, but 23 say it's not an immediate priority. 8% haven't really thought about it, and 0% have said not right now. So folks, you're in the right place. I'm going to close this out. Thank you again. This is really helpful. All right. I'm going to join you guys towards the end and help out with questions, but for now, I'm going to hand you over to Scott.
Well, thank you, Mihal, and you are all very welcome to today's webinar, Best Practices for Deploying a Project and Portfolio Management Solution on Microsoft 365. Thanks for the poll. I found the poll responses very interesting and informative. So today's webinar, we're going to show our project and portfolio management solution in Microsoft 365 and the proven approach that we take to successfully deploy our solution on that platform. Now, briefly, what is BrightWork 365? Well, it's a Power App that's built on the Microsoft 365 Power Platform that is focused exclusively on project and portfolio management, and that delivers process and functionality immediately so you can start quickly and have cross-project and portfolio visibility, and allows you to evolve and mature at your own pace, which is all part of how we approach it as well. So I'm going to do a very brief demo of BrightWork 365 to start this off and then get into the discussion. So hang on one second while I bring that up. Okay, I am ready to do that. And hopefully everybody can see my screen. Michal, can you see it okay?
I can see your browser and I can see the BrightWork 365.
Okay, so basically BrightWork 365 allows you to manage intake, new project requests, portfolios of projects that are divided into programs, and of course the project details themselves. And as you can see, those are the three areas that are presented here. And again, I'm just going to do a brief overview of what's in each of these. So on the request side, the ability to take new requests and take them through their process of getting the information about what this project, how it aligns to your objectives and strategic alignment to what the organization is doing, and present you with a form in which to do that. You can apply it to a portfolio and a program and fill in all this information. And then across the top, there is a process involved, and again, this is customizable to what you might want to do with your new request that may have to go through some kind of review and approval. That process can be built into it so that it takes it through, and the various approvers can be identified and what they need to do at the various stages. So that is the request piece. Back up here, I'm going to jump over to portfolios. The idea here is to be able to define portfolios of projects. And so I have some example here, like customer success projects. And then within those projects, you'll have programs, customer success programs and deployments that we do. And then under the programs, then you would have projects. So for example, in the deployments, we have various projects going on. And that takes us to the projects themselves. So each project can be built on a best practice that allows you to, one, capture the information about the project and what they're doing, the priority, what kind of things like exit criteria and approval requirements there might be, if there's any risk or impacts. So the general information about the project, who is it, who's managing it, who's the sponsor, what portfolio it belongs to. You can tie it to a Teams channel so that you can collaborate on the project as well through Teams, and documentation through SharePoint Online. But then the various aspects of the project can be managed, including status, the stages that the project is going to go through, the actual schedule that the project will have, and how it's doing. I mentioned documents. You could have actions as well that are going on, issues that have occurred, risks. You could do risk management through this, and do some cost tracking as well as the communications that happen. And that would include things like appointments, emails, phone calls, and things like that. And projects also have a process that they'll go through, a stage, so you can manage those stages, and if need be, you can even have the stages have gate reviews on them as well. All of this supports a pretty robust reporting facility within the tool that leverages both Power App and Power BI so that you can keep track of how your requests and how your portfolios are doing. So for example, here's the project dashboard. Very easy to see where are projects in their process, how are they doing on their health, how many projects by program, by project manager, things like that. We also get to the Power BI reporting, which will allow us to take all this information and present it in a meaningful way to a variety of audiences. And so this is extensible and can be leveraged and continue to extend to other ways of presenting the information, status, the timeline, and things like that. That includes documents, resource utilization, and various other ways of reporting on what's going on across the projects here. This is look at resource availability and maybe some issues that might be coming up. So that's just quickly what BrightWork is all about. And in today's discussion, this is really all about, well, how do we successfully deploy something like this, and what's worked really well as a best practice. So I'm going to go back to my slides here. So just to, let's kind of paint the picture here. You know, your organization has invested in the Microsoft 365 platform, and now you want to leverage this platform to manage new project requests, projects, portfolios in a standardized manner and align with the project management best practices. And of course, along the way, you also wish to have all your key people in the group trained in the smooth operation of your project and portfolio management solution on the Microsoft 365 platform as well. So the approach that we use at BrightWork is to successfully deploy in Microsoft 365 follows this start and evolve vision. Start to deliver immediate visibility and control, evolve, grow as the organization grows and has the ability to take on more of the process. So it's built into BrightWork 365 with the use of templates. I showed you some of those templates in the demonstration, and it's designed into our deployment process and services. Now, the START approach accelerates initial deployment by adopting a sufficient amount of project management capability with configurable best practice templates in the tool. And this also enables the standardization of your project management processes and tracking of all your projects in one place. Now, from that base template setup, we can then just go in and help you adjust to get you immediately up and running. And this will also give your senior management the immediate visibility to exercise control over the entire project portfolio. Now, START should use a best practice implementation process as well. And an example of this that we use at BrightWork is what we call 3D, which stands for Design, Deliver, and Deploy. Now, it's a clear, very transparent, and practical change management process focused on the project management needs of your group. The designs part of this, or the design phase of the deployment, has 4 key elements. First, capture your organization's project management vision, both short and long term. Then prioritize those requirements to determine which ones to include in this start cycle, or this first iteration, and which ones will be addressed later during a subsequent evolve cycle. So you're going to build up a backlog, and you're going to prioritize that backlog. Then you want to establish a project management success strategy. This is the higher level roadmap that you're going to use to ensure that you're successful with not only deployment, but successful with your project management process, and agree on the desired outcomes and the expected value. And then the fourth part of design is to go and design those best practice templates with the adjustments needed to manage your projects, programs, and portfolios, and to deliver on senior management level visibility. Once that's completed, go on to the delivery phase, which is configure the templates and build out the real projects for your team. Then you'll want to review and verify the templates, that they're doing what they were designed to do and that they're meeting your needs before continuing, and adjust those templates. You might run through several cycles of that. So you'll adjust, you'll review, you'll adjust until you're ready. And that takes us to the deployment phase. And in deployment, you're going to design and deliver a role-based training program that suits your project management processes, so your groups can start using the solution as soon as possible. And then you'll have a go-live event, and you'll conduct feedback sessions with your team after some initial usage to determine if some items need to be adjusted immediately. After that, Formally declare your all-in scope start deliverables are achieved, and update your project management success strategy to see what's next on the priority and to move into what we would call evolve. So now we're at a point you successfully concluded a start service. You're up, you're running, people are using it, it's running smoothly, and while your initial project management processes are now in place, you see the need to evolve and build more project management capability into your solution. You want to expand it to other organizations. It could be a variety of reasons and priorities that were built into your success strategy. So you'll want to start to implement the backlog in the evolve plan devised during the start service and ultimately deliver on the next phase of your project management success strategy. Now, each evolve deployment cycle can follow the same 3D methodology as in the start: design, deliver, deploy. Establish what is going to be delivered for that particular cycle from the backlog, build, test, and verify, train, roll out, and validate. This approach has been very successful for us. Now, after a period of time, you'll want to review how your project management success is doing compared to the success strategy that you defined during the beginning, during the start. So the review would address, are there any immediate things that need to be changed or adjusted, or is everything working as we expected? And how is our current use of the solution and the results? Are we getting the desired outcomes, the expected value that we wanted to achieve? Next would be to look at the project management success strategy and see if there's any change to that or what is next on that strategy plan. And of course, that leads into the next evolve cycle to address. Now, this kind of review is most effective when conducted every 6 months to annually. So to briefly summarize, leverage a start and evolve approach. Start with enough project and portfolio management process support to get value and control quickly on your project portfolio. Then evolve the solution based on priorities and desired outcomes. And periodically review how your project and portfolio management solution is supporting your project management success strategy and your organizational objectives. So now I'd like to have Michal rejoin us, and we will answer as many questions as you have for us in the remaining of the session here. Michal?
Yeah, hey. So thank you very much. That was great and really insightful. So first thing I'm going to do, folks, is obviously we have loads of time here today, so please add in as many questions as you can. I'm just going to drop a little link into the chat. So we're going to stay on and answer some questions today, obviously, but if you have more in-depth questions, say about our product, BrightWork 365 itself, the best thing to do would probably be to set up a demo. So I'm just going to drop a link into the chat, which is a calendar for my colleague, Adam. And he's the best person to talk to about arranging a demo of BrightWork 365. And we can also talk about our approach as well. As we talk as well, I might get some links as well to some of our web pages that talk about that kind of outline what we talked about today in our call. So first things first, I think that Cynthia has one or two questions. So she wants to know, is it based on Microsoft Project?
It is. It's not based on Microsoft Project, although it has some of the similar capabilities in terms of the scheduling tool and the scheduling aspect of it. The schedule I showed you actually runs from our own scheduling engine, but it has very similar capabilities, and you can put in its duration-based scheduling. It can run different dependencies, so you can have finish to start, start to start, finish to finish, start to finish, those kind of things. It doesn't do resource-driven scheduling at this time. It's something to consider in the future, but it does have the it's kind of the same basic qualities of a Microsoft Project type of scheduling tool that's built into it.
Sure. There's another question here from Cynthia, which is poignant, and it's something that we addressed earlier. She wants to know, is there a deck available for today's presentation? There is, of course, Cynthia, but I'm also going to drop in just one more link, which is just a link to our website, and it's a link to our Start service, which is something that Scott kind of covered early on in the presentation. And you might find some information about that in the short term, but we will, of course, be sending out the slides for today's event tomorrow, and that's going to come from our colleague Adam. Okay, let's have a look here at what else we have. Okay, so we've got one or two questions covering the same thing, Scott. So people want to know what kind of licensing requirements are required for BrightWork 365.
Okay, so there's of course our license for the application BrightWork 365. That also, because it's on Power Apps or the Power Platform, there is a requirement for a Microsoft license, and that would be a Power App per app or Power App per user license that would be required to use that facility within Microsoft 365. And for those that will be managing reporting and using Power BI and consuming that, there's that kind of licensing for access to the Power BI environment within Microsoft 365 as well. So a subset of your users will have that. A subset will have the Power App. Actually, anybody using BrightWork 365 will have the Power App licensing as well. And so you can have Power App per app is, I think it's $5 a month per user, and Power App per user is $20. I'm not sure the pricing on that, but that's generally what I've heard out there.
Sure. You mentioned Power BI a second ago, and that leads me on to one of our other questions. One of our users wants to know if he can import data into Power BI. So I'm guessing he's looking for the integration between BrightWork 365 and Power BI. Maybe you could speak a little bit about that.
Yes, because the data is available. We already have example reporting that I showed you there that's connected to it. This is all backed up by the Dataverse, by the way. So the data exists in a database in the cloud Dataverse, and you can tap into that. You can move it into another data warehouse, and you could continue to do reporting on it through Power BI or any other reporting facility that you have, because you have access to it.
Sure. Darren has an interesting question. He wants to know what's the benefit of using BrightWork 365 versus using different 365 groups, such as SharePoint collection, Teams groups, and channels. I'm going to guess the answer is kind of bringing it all together, is it?
It is. It brings all your project and portfolio process into a single system, and that everybody can participate in. So you've got your intake, you've got your project management, you've got your portfolio and program set up so that you can structure the information properly. And it all brings it into one place, and it's integrated with those others so that you can collaborate across the platform, the Power Platform and the Microsoft 365 platform.
I guess that comes back to what we were talking about. When we started off this presentation, is sure, you can have different process and different tools, but the key word is here standardization, right?
Yes.
It's
definitely.
It's getting everybody using the same thing. Let me just have a look. I think that sorry, I'm going to mispronounce your name, sir. You've asked a very similar question. I think we've kind of covered it there. What's the difference between using this solution and some others? I think it's about leveraging your Microsoft environment and those apps, and standardizing and bringing your data all into one place.
One other thing I'll call out, Michal, is that this because it's a Power App, and because we've set it up in the 365 environment like this, it's device independent. In other words, you can work this from your desktop. You could work it from a mobile device as well. All you need is your Microsoft account to connect up.
Absolutely. And there's some cool things too there in terms of collaboration, especially like in teams and that kind of stuff as well, which is handy. Um,
Very.
and that's something that we don't have time to go through all the features of the product today, folks. But I just kind of want to refer you back to that link I just popped through in the chat. If you do want to see more features and you have more in-depth questions, please do book a chat with Adam, and he'll set you on the right road. Let me get into more questions here.
Mhm.
What are the restrictions and capabilities of the tool? Can I? Sorry, 1 second. I can't read all that question. Apologies,
Can you
folks.
download it and use it offline? Yeah,
There it
I
is.
think that's the
Yeah,
question. Yeah.
yeah.
So, as I mentioned, it's mobile friendly, but it's not something that you could use offline. It's cloud based, so uh, accessing it through your Microsoft 365 account, through through a device. It could be your iPhone or a mobile phone. It could be a tablet, or it could be a desktop.
Cool. Nicole wants to know how do I find out about becoming a partner. We might reach out to you after the call, Nicole, or might be able to talk to Adam about that. That's probably the best way to do that.
Yeah, I think we definitely could reach out and have a conversation about that.
Cynthia has just put in an interesting question, but who at BrightWork has access to our data?
You control that. When we do a deployment, it's typically we have you set up 3 environments in your tenant. The first one's a dev environment, and we ask that you give us a guest account into that. The second is a test environment, and then a third is a production environment, which is where it will really reside for your users. We only have access to the dev environment. So it's really you control what you want to put in the dev environment and what we work with there.
That makes sense to me. Cynthia has a couple of other questions about standards and regulations. Is there alignment to ISO 9001?
That's probably customer specific. If they're on
Yeah,
that path, then this could be a part of their their plan for compliance with 9001 or whatever ISO standard they're going for.
sure. There's a couple of very specific questions coming there. Cynthia, we might reach out to you after the call, actually, if that's okay with you, so that we can address those very specific questions for you. But I'm really glad to see you're interested. Karsten has said thank you very much. It's a lovely tool. So we are delighted to hear that. Okay, now might be a good time to show just Adam's contact details there.
Yep.
Again, folks, thanks for coming today. This is a little bit of a different kind of webinar for us today, but we think it went pretty well. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We certainly did. As I said before, we have recorded this. So if you want to kind of go back and look over what we talked about or what Scott showed us today, please feel free. You'll get that email tomorrow, so keep an eye out for it. Thanks again from me, and thank you, Scott, for taking the time to talk that through with us today. It was very informative.
Thank you everybody for joining us today and taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Hopefully we'll
Thanks,
be
Michal.
chatting to some of you very, very soon, but have a lovely rest of your day wherever you are. Talk soon.